request from council to the Board of Management. So this is our response to put the terms of reference and guidelines to this panel. So there's nothing like this. There's no panel that has these folks in it previous to the council.
And other than the fact that some members of council felt that they wanted to throw in everything, every organization that they could think of that might have something to do with an animal, do we have any background as to whether, in fact, the people belonging to these organizations have any qualifications?
It's a good question. The only thing that we've put in the terms of reference is to ask for respective resumes that would be shared amongst the panel members and including shared through me as well.
So, do we know, do you have any feeling like Born Free Canada, I don't know how that applies to anything here? Because if it's Born Free, it's antithetical to the zoo, I'm thinking. So, I guess since the wisdom of council and the majority thereof thought that we should put all these groups in together, I guess we can only wait and see how it turns out. But I would really like to know what their qualifications are as far as being able to judge on animal care standards at the Toronto Zoo. I think that's a question that needs to be asked, not just the resume that they've been an animal activist for 20 years. I'd like to know what their qualification is. So can we ask that question as well?
Or would like to put forward some direction.
Well,
I'll just pass it on.
so then Michael and then Cal. Cindy.
I just want to make sure that I understand from my education the engine behind this or the ask here. This is council telling us, or telling us as the zoo and as the board, that they want to create an audit committee that's made up of these entities which they have proposed, and we are or are not allowed to reject any of the entities, propose our own entities and go through a proper process to make the audit committee, or is it here's the audit committee and then come up with terms that satisfy that audit committee?
As John has explained it to me, they have requested us to create this specific audit committee. But if we don't create it, it is also a condition of the tripartite agreement getting reviewed. Rob?
Oh, here's what happened.
Uh-oh.
And it's all written here.
The lawyer.
Council has requested, because the process is the council, the protocol, I'll say, is request boards and certain positions to do things rather than requiring them to do them. So, but a request in this sense really is a requirement. They're expecting it to happen. And they've requested the board to convene the expert panel, and then they say such panel shall be composed of representatives from these various groups. Now, in terms of these various groups, they have to obviously exist, and I know some that have been mentioned. I checked some of them out to see what they are, and one of them in particular is actually a manufacturer of babies' furniture in Vaughan. If you Google it, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I thought he was the wildlife artist.
I'm serious. But there's a Born Free US and there's a Born Free UK. There is no actual entity, legal entity called Born Free Canada, other than this company. So you might want to send them an invitation.
Okay.
So what's our ability to propose any other members here to work around and vet these members?
I would say that this is the list that you are required to invite. Again, this panel is just an advisory panel. They're doing an assessment, an audit, if you look at the terms of reference, it's quite clear that once that report comes in, the CEO will review it and make determination as to how it's applied, how the content of it is. So it's not that you have to do what they say, it's just that they come up with recommendations. No, you go with the recommendation. And again, you have people from all over the place on this committee, so there's no knowing what the consensus will be or how that is. So I think when the terms of reference are drafted, if you look at them, they report to the CEO, who then provides that information to you and will provide his own report as to what he intends to do with those recommendations. So it's really just advisory.
Okay, Cal.
I'm just looking this over, I was saying, Sue, I seem to remember this coming forward at council. I seem to remember we put it forward.
Yes, somebody's not here at the moment.
And
Giorgio.
Somebody else.
what it does say is who we have to have on it. What it doesn't say is who we don't have to have on it. And what I mean by that is, in my mind, this is not a closed shop just for people that manage to start up a public interest group for themselves and then represent themselves as being experts on animals. This is the citizens of the city of Toronto's collection. So what I'd like to do is propose that not only would we have these groups, if this is what we're required to do, I would like to have a citizen member for every, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I would like to have 8 citizen members added to this group as well, to provide some balance.
Great idea.
I think get a view from not special interest groups, but actually the people that own this collection in the city of Toronto, get their point of view.
Should we what about making them the members of the zoo and inviting them?
Well, we could, it doesn't say who we can't have. It says we have to have these people, but it doesn't say that we can't have others.
Members and volunteers?
We can structure this any way we want, but what I'm striving for here, Joe, what I'm striving for here is balance. So if we're going to have 8
What is Giorgio?
interest groups on here, I want at least 8 or more of the other group to be on this spot.
Okay.
So that's just a friendly amendment.
Okay, well, okay. Cindy?
So a couple of things. Thank you, Joe. I guess, how was the list compiled?
I can tell you exactly how this came about based on what somebody told me after this event, but I'll do that one-on-one.
Okay. And to your point, adding additional members by our board might be an appropriate measure. And, really putting some animal health and welfare experts in there, I would have thought that perhaps University of Guelph or someone with that kind of level of expertise would have been included. It's just kind of surprising seeing some of the individuals or groups to assess and the animal care standards that we see are on this list.
Like 50 people on the committee.
Another thing too, as we became directors of this board, there was a whole process involved, right? For the citizens, for the citizens, and we take it pretty seriously. And I'm just surprised that arbitrarily, individuals from, I guess, 8 groups would just get appointed to a pretty important advisory panel, making recommendations on the future of this zoo and our animals.
Okay. Sabrina.
From my perspective, I'm going to be voting against this, not because I disagree with the concept of it, but because it's another example of city council treating the board of the zoo as a puppet. And in terms of our legal obligations as a board, one of the specific things we can't do is ask for a puppet, as a puppet for another organization. And so if we're consulted on these things in a different matter rather than them being shoved down our throat, I don't theoretically have an issue with the concept. I have an issue with some of the members on here. I don't have an issue with the concept. But I do have an issue with directives coming from city council forcing the board to behave like a puppet. So I'm going to vote for these.
So it says here there may be some expense to the chair services. So this is coming out of the zoo's budget. Do we have any ability to charge a membership fee if you're going to be on this panel? Is that a good option? I don't know if it's a good idea. I'm just
for donation.
It may help towards funding the position or this penalty time.
Obviously, we can put forward anything, any suggestion. The majority of these folks would be donating their time, would be volunteering their time. For example, Canadian Council on Animal Care, most of those folks, I believe, come from out of town, so we would ask them to cover their own expenses, cover their own time, and volunteer. So we could ask them to also contribute towards the chair, but
Well, the idea is more that, we're already staffed to oversee and help prepare, so to cover the expenses of any administration, time and hours that we have to allocate our resources.
Yeah, actually, for the second round, anybody else for this first round? Raymond?
Yeah, on number 7, reaching format for frequency. The advisory panel will meet approximately twice a month, and I just got some messages on how it's on. Do you think we'll have a good forum, or if it's all volunteers, a paid job, and different things? I'm not suggesting it should be paid job, but twice a month, and even kind of come on, I don't know. Are we too ambitious, or is it practical?
They're serious, they can attend.
I think the concept here was to have a start and finish and fairly tight. The other part of this is, if this is to be considered by the board, to be considered by council, to be considered as part of the relationship framework, strategic plan, we're trying to get those things underway without having this piece held up. The meeting will be at the call of the chair, and it can be by conference or in person. That's pretty much as flexible as we try to make it.
Okay, any more first? Okay, over to you, Cal.
One thing I just wanted to clarify, sure, what exactly are you asking about here? I mean, this looks like it's been just sort of a commandment delivered by council. And we can talk about debating about what the terms of this are, but it looks like they're pretty much specified in terms of what it is they want us to do. So, I mean, is it even in our place, and just sort of referencing what Samuel was saying, is it even in our place to say, what are we voting against, for, or what on this? I mean, what we could do, I mean, some of the stuff are just, some of the things in here, I mean, we've offered some amendments. I'm not sure if that's our place to do that. Just let me finish. And then there's some things in here that I think are patently ridiculous. These people are going to be close on that. It's just, it's not even do that. We've got things in here like, we're specifying the Ministry of Agriculture and Food who's going to sit on this. Has anybody even approached them or talked to them? Like, who there is going to be the person that's going to be doing this stuff? So, apart from, kind of writing this on the back of an napkin at lunch, I'm not sure that there was a whole lot of thought put into this. And I'm not sure what we're even being asked to do anyway. So, can you maybe specify for me? So, if I voted against this, how would that work?
My understanding, regardless, is though the city solicitor says that it is a directive of council. Council did not use the word direct in it. Council used the word request. So in theory, the board could turn it over, and then council could go back, reopen the matter, and change it to say direct. And at that point, we have no choice.
Is that the truth?
Well, council can direct, but they also can do is abolish the board and just do everything themselves if they want to do.
And
If they chose to do that.
sweep up the
They should.
sweep up the food to zoo. They want to.
But for just on the issue that was raised earlier, because I wanted to think about the rest of it, in terms of who the representatives are, there was a motion to council to say include as opposed to shall be composed of. And that was defeated. So the intent of council was clearly that these are the members, or these people should be invited to be the members of this panel, and they want this panel. And the other thing is what's coming up next in governance. I mean, what's before you today is just the terms of reference, really. What's coming up next in governance is the whole issue of the agreement with the city and all the rest of it. And everyone else has these governance agreements or frameworks in place right now, many other boards. And this is an element that I know the city managers, for your information, city manager's office expects to be dealt with as part of this. So whatever you do today, they're going to keep it. It's not as if this is just going to go away. This is what council expects to happen. I mean, you're the board, you can do what you want, but this is what they expect to happen, and it's certainly going to keep coming back because this is going to be part of the larger governance issue.
Yep.
Again, like, I think it's not the first time we've had a situation where we're being directed by council to do something. And in fact, council is acting as a pseudo board. And so I think if they're going to keep directing us to do things, I don't feel comfortable knowing my legal rights to act as a puppet because being a director, one of the rules specifically is not to act as a puppet for somebody else. And I mean, I think council should abolish the board if they're going to continue to act or ask for directives or push directives on the board.
Okay, Josh?
We had in the past issues with CASA and ASA with their governance. Do we know the ramifications of having this board with CASA, as an example? I haven't heard anything about it. I just want to know if we was CASA accepting this or not, or does it affect us in any way? That hasn't been clear to us either.
It hasn't, CASA or AZA has not indicated by this motion that by going through this, that it impacts us in any way. They're obviously raising flags and are going to be monitoring this very closely, and depending on the results of what the board does with this panel and what it doesn't do with this panel, it's going to be taken very seriously and best speak to the Board of Governance. So that's the only thing I can say to that. So it's an excellent question.
Yeah, Cindy.
So I don't think having an advisory panel is necessarily a bad thing. My concern is having the panel members dictated by councillors that are well-meaning, however, really don't perhaps know who is considered an expert in this sector. And so, if there were flexibility on the composition, then I could be in favor of it. But as it is right now, having this lineup of organizations really doesn't sit well.
All right.
I would suggest that since we are stuck with this group, that we ask, besides a resume, for their qualifications to be able to provide useful advice. Because I think if you're a manufacturer of baby furniture, I'm not, other than maybe our political, I don't know how it would appeal, really. And it's very clear, the reason this is thrown up to us is because at the back of some of the members of council's minds, they want to get rid of the zoo. That's all there's to it. They want to get rid of the animals, get rid of the zoo, and everything will be fine. And fortunately, until there's a new council with hopefully other people on it who will have a different frame of mind, or a mayor who can actually exercise some leadership, we're stuck with this. And that's where it's at. So that would be my recommendations, to add some qualifications.
John.
Well, I guess it's sort of I would see it as a two-part thing. There's a bit of order of operations here. Okay, so the first part of it is do we accept this or not? If we don't accept it, there's no point in offering changes, amendments, but I strongly support what you were talking about. So, I think that in theory, the idea of having a citizen panel, I can tell you landfills and things, I have all kinds of them all over the country. They provide value. People that come into those things come in with an open mind and they're there as citizens to serve the community, as opposed to somebody with a clearly articulated point of view on zoos and the utility of society, whether they want them or not, and whether they manage to line themselves up politically with a certain council, which is more or less what this is. So it seems to me that there's sort of two parts to this. And I mean, if I have to propose a motion on the first part, I'm happy to do it, which is, and we can talk for a second about this, because we're starting in uncharted waters here on some of this piece. But if it's a case where the board refuses to implement this, the city will respond, and I'm comfortable with that. I mean, I got a rich full life, there's lots of other things that I can do. And if there's other people that wanna allow this kind of thing to go on and want to see their membership as a member of the board of management of the zoo is simply to implement things that council tells them to do, then I'm happy to allow them to do that. It's not how I want to spend my life. So the first part of it, I think, is that. And then if we accept that, yes, we're going to go ahead and implement this thing, then I think we can start talking about some of the amendments or a suggestion. It wouldn't even be amendments because we can't amend this, right? It would be suggestions that we would have to maybe approve it. I think you come up with some saying that I had a few there, I think Gloria had a couple as well. So is there any sense, and I'm looking to the experts here, what I just described, if so, why don't we just get to that and get this over with, frankly.
My own take on, there's nothing wrong with advisory panels. The way this is being set up is disgusting. But if it's amended correctly, it can actually be a helpful exercise for the zoo.
Well, but no, it can't be amended correctly because legal counsel's advised that these are the groups that have to be on it. And with these groups on it, okay, I don't think you can operate a proper advisory committee.
Yeah, but that was council's request to set it up. We could always come back with an alternative request. Because it was not, regardless of what we've been told by the city solicitor, it is a request. It is not, by words, a direction.
Maybe we can get back to
Pardon me?
your opinion, Rob?
The word says request, that's the protocol, and that's what is traditionally done. But you are a board, you're there for a reason to make decisions, and if you choose to not follow the request or to change the request, that's up to you. However, there are potential consequences at council.
Can you explain what those consequences are?
Can I explain that? They could abolish the board. Ultimately, they could say, well, you know what, we're going to cut your budget because we don't like what you're doing. When it comes time to the contribution they make to your budget, they could say, we've had enough, and do nothing. They could choose to not reappoint people through the reappointment process when that comes up.
Can I make a suggestion? Why can't we set up a parallel advisory committee, actually consisting of qualified individuals, like somebody from U of T, somebody from Guelph, and let's then compare what comes out of each. I think that's the only way to do it. At this point in time, council can't say boo to a goose because we're setting up a parallel committee.
Raymond, what's your opinion on this? You supported this.
Supported this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
The former chair of the board, as somebody who's been a strong supporter of the zoo.
We prefer this thing at least a month, and then we like to get the opinion from our senior staff.
Well, this is their opinion, Raymond.
The zoo has been functioning well, and to be honest with you, I forgot what triggered this council.
The fact that we wanted to be autonomous with the animal care being at zoo board level, not at council. That's what triggered the whole thing. Because as you remember,
So
it was council
at the very latest?
council uploaded the elephant thing to council.
Mm-hmm.
And that just triggered AZA, triggered CASA, triggered, you do remember that, right?
Yeah.
And you voted for that.
Yeah.
So, what's your recommendation here? What do we do?
I don't know, just responding what Councillor in the room said.
That's
me.
me.
Yeah, I know. Having too many panels with confusion, and if we have one, I think we have one rather than have this panel, advice panel.
So Raymond, would you be willing to go back to council and we say, we'll put in an advisory panel with some of these people. We'll bring in our own people too. And Raymond, would you be willing to champion that at council? Say the zoo is doing the right thing on this.
That's another motion.
I mean, I will let the be an add-on.
So I propose a motion. I'd like to put a motion, and I think we need to engage that. And then, if what we've decided is that If the board decides to support that, that's the end of the conversation,
Okay.
okay? If you decide to do something else, then we can get into the conversation, then we can talk about Gloria's two panels, we can talk about me doing, which is more or less what I'm talking about, adding 10 people, and that's, to delete whatever this is, right?
It's to, not necessarily to interrelate with these people, but to be a separate.
Understand?
Yeah, I think we might kill staff if we actually do two different ones, because they have to get on the business of running this. too. So that's the way if they're separate.
Well, council's going to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody's well trained to handle the venomous snakes, like the poor person that got bit. Raymond, what do you think?
Well, why don't we adopt what the concept and include, we extended the broader numbers, but we're not going against the council, and then and do it and involve the council. They're requesting, they're not giving instructions.
Well, Raymond, so from your perspective as one of the people supporting this initially, you'd be willing to accept that it's a request from council, not a direction?
Some political positions they are requesting, and we kind of amend, and it makes more sense. I think not just by organization.
Can we make that panel just that much more strong and kind of come up with, like, if there are things that make the zoo better, fantastic. But I'm just really concerned about this list. And so if it is a request, then back to them, we want to make this panel as good as it possibly can be. And this is the add-ons, or this is the composition that we're recommending.
See, I'm not opposed to the idea of the panel. I'm opposed to how the members were selected.
Right.
So, because there are actually, by the way, some really good groups on this, like the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association is a great group. So, and they are qualified.
I don't think any of us are directly opposed to the idea of the panel. I think it's going to benefit the community in a positive way. I think, a number of people are opposed to a panel that has people who don't have expertise in animal care, which is frighteningly actually. And I'm personally opposed to getting directives from city council and having to implement them and accept liability for anything that happens because it has important. So.
Can we break this up into, do we need to do motion?
Yes, we do.
Can
We
break
want to
it-
amend it.
Can we break it up into two? So one, the first motion being the panel, a panel, and then the other recommendation on composition?
Yes, or well, you could do it that way. You could do the panel as by the city, the panel as the board decides.
No, this isn't what.
Well, no, because that's another way to do it. So we can
Well,
put that one
no,
on the
it's
table.
not, okay? It's not, okay? There's one decision to make, which is binding, okay? It's the first one, which is, do we accept this request or not?
As
Okay?
is.
As is, okay? That's what we're being asked. And if we say no, we can leave it at that, okay? And let's do the math, okay? We're in an election year, somebody wants to take this on and make this a big deal for themselves, good luck with it, okay? I'm happy to have that fight, okay? We can do, I want to dissolve the board, go ahead and do it, okay? So, we're just about done anyway, we've got another 6 months or whatever it is. So if that's what they want to do, on a matter of principle, we can do that, okay? If we decide not to do that, okay, what we can do is do the second half of this thing and say, we accept this, but we have some friendly amendments, these are what they are, okay, in the sense of some of the things that people have raised, I've raised a couple of ideas as well, and we can start the dialogue back and forth on that, okay? But I don't think we can have that second conversation unless we exhaust the first conversation, okay? And I have exactly the same concerns as you do. We're accepting, what we're doing is we're creating a precedent. I'm going to speak to this now because you might as well.
Go for it.
We're accepting a precedent that this is the role of the management board to do, okay? They did it to us with elephants, okay? In this situation, they're attempting to do exactly the same thing, which is essentially to say that the board doesn't exist, okay? Because we're just meeting here. What they're really doing is they're directing staff to do things, okay? And if that's the way this is going to be, there's no point in having a board, okay? And at some point, we have to have this fight, okay? My view is this is as good a grounds as any to have it on. And I would be quite happy to send this back to the city to say, this is not a rule, this is not how we see this management report operating. If you have a problem with that, you have options in front of you that you can deal with this, okay, or deal with this problem. But unless and until you're going to do that, we're not going to be doing this. We're not going to be doing this, and we're not going to be doing the other 20 things that Glenda Beerlaker probably has on this list for us to do, okay? We're not going to do any of those things until you guys get very clear on what the governance is supposed to be. And there's a couple of problems with what they're doing right now. Number one is exactly what you're saying, which is the liability that we're accepting as a board for decisions that they're making and we're not making ourselves, okay? The second part of it, and I think I've already touched on this, is the precedent that we're creating for future boards and how we're supposed to operate. And I think that unless we turn this back, okay, listen, as I said, I'm not opposed to advisory councils. I've got them all over the country, okay, on all kinds of projects, believe me, that are 1,000 times more controversial than this one. And I deal with public interest people as opposed to what I do every day, okay? But those people are selected for their expertise, they're selected for their community membership, they're selected for a variety of reasons so that they can come in and we can have a reasonable dialogue about things. When I'm getting filmed, like I am right now, and I have been at other times by Sucha, okay, I don't feel like I'm having a reasonable dialogue with reasonable people. I feel like I'm dealing with ideological people, okay, and I've got a problem with that. So again, there's two things that I think we need to engage on this. Number one, is this how the board is going to operate in the future? Is this how we're going to tie the hands of future boards in the future? And number two, are you as a director going to accept the legal liability because you're going to be, okay, by accepting this directions that council give us to just pass them on staff? If you're willing to do that, personally I'm not, okay. So if you're willing to do that, I think that we need to vote against the motion that I presented.
I think this motion from council says a lot about what they think of citizen engagement overall and anything involved with the city when they put out public postings of we want you on the board of the TTC on this fund, on that fund. By setting up a motion like this, I think what they mean is, to be blunt, they really don't give a shit what you think, but they want your money and they want you to just follow the law. So, motion to receive is your amendment?
No, I think that the motion is to turn this back. Right. Okay, if that's the part which we do this.
I like the original idea of what you said earlier.
I'm sure you did. I changed my mind.
So, what would you like to table? Motion to reject and inform council?
I'm happy to do that. I mean, what's the right parliamentary language here? I'm not sure.
Rob, what would be the right way for the board to tell council that, thank you, but we're going to do our duties as directors?
I'm going to leave that wording up to you, but what you might want to do is just make a motion to advise council that you've received their request and you've chosen.
It's been duly noted. The request is duly noted.
I don't know if you have that in the procedure bylaw, but
Receipt item for information basis. The item here, if you want to transmit that decision.
well, except the problem is what's actually before
Receive
you.
for information?
Well, hang on.
Receive and transmit it back.
You're not going to accomplish what you want to accomplish by doing that. So what this report, looks like the actual report, is about, actually, is recommending that you adopt terms of reference of this panel. So if you receive information, you've done nothing, and it just sits there. If you actually want to advise council of your position in respect to what they have done, someone has to come up with particular wording and send that back to council.
That the board not approve the establishment of an advisory panel?
That the board rejects council's request.
No.
Whatever wording, it's your choice of wording. Again, there's protocols, and then there's whatever you want.
If you reject this, the perception, unless it comes with additional explanation, is going to be. There's going to be a misconception about why. Like just to turn it down.
Oh, it can get spun whatever way.
Yeah, but I would just not just reject. It's going to send a very wrong message about animal care standards and our attention to it. You know what I mean?
Then duly noted.
Yeah,
I'm not opposed to the idea of it, I'm opposed to how this was done.
Again, I think that all of us are in favor of an advisory plan.
Yeah.
So I think that we should communicate that to council, but communicate in a way that we can be creative.
Okay, so sorry, there's a Rob, do you want to take, so we've just been approved by the Canadian Council of on Animal Care, so they've basically gone in and done an audit already.
Yeah, Canadian Council of Animal Care is accredited.
OMAF.
Is accredited
In June.
We have received regular inspections by the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture and Food, and we are approved by them to operate as a zoo. We've done our own internal audits and standards, and we do this on a regular basis, and we're also accredited by the Canadian Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which is our industry standard, which has very high levels of accreditation standards that we must meet. Therefore, we do not require that we establish the animal care advisory panel.
And the Ontario Society, OSPCA,
They
they have no jurisdiction.
We have no real jurisdiction unless
The Canadian Federation of Humane Societies is part of the Canadian Council on Animal Care. It's 22 organizations. They sent a rep and came in June, we did 2 full days, great big documentation like that. They've already been in and reviewed it and taken it back to their council. Plus it was approved by the Canadian Council on Animal Care. We have no major concerns.
Do we want to take a 5-minute, you know what, it sounds like there's actually some good wording that we can include sending back to council on this one. Do we want to take a couple minutes recess and work out the wording on this and present it to everybody? Yeah. Motion for 10-minute recess? Sabrina? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, nobody.